take a look at this. Full Conceal Glock coming up next on GB Guns. So that method of opening that was demonstrated in the opening video is not recommended, but it is pretty cool and fun to do. Of course, we've got an empty mag here and an empty chamber. These things have been all over the internet. I remember when the concept first came out. I remember an earlier version of it being shown at TriggerCon, and now here is an actual full production model ready to get into the hands of somebody like me. So what's the concept here, right? That's probably the immediate question. Before we go into all the details, why? That is a question I had when I first saw the news of it. I thought, well, that's a cool idea. I don't get it. The inspiration came from the mass shooting that happened in Aurora, Colorado a few years back, when Mr. Full, who of course is the name behind Full Conceal, realized that a little single stack, compact, popular gun like the Shield here, may not be able to provide the volume of fire needed in the case of a hardened opponent or multiple opponents. And it's true. I mean, we sacrifice. I mean, I'd love to carry my Q5 match if I could. Love this gun. But you know what? It's a little bit too big for that. So I carry a single stack 9, similar to the Shield. I vary between the, well, two other single stack 9s. And they are a compromise. Quite frankly, we're giving up capacity and sight radius and velocity due to shorter barrel in order to have a more concealable gun. The problem with most guns is the outline, is that shape, right? That no matter what you do, you're trying to hide. By developing a gun that can fold down like this, we no longer have that footprint. My thumb was on the back side of the mag release. We no longer have that same footprint or bulge in your pocket or pants, etc. And now you've got something that is a lot easier to conceal. The comparison you always see online is that it's about the same footprint as a cell phone. That's done using a larger iPhone 7. This is a Galaxy S6, smaller than the iPhone, but as you can see, it's still not a huge size difference. To give you perhaps a more straightforward view, here it is on top of the phone. It's going a little bit further there, but not a whole lot. So yes, this is going to create a shape that doesn't look like a gun, and yes, it does take up much less space. And you could say, well, you know, aside from the velocity, what about something like a Glock 26? This is based off of a 19, but in this folded configuration, what you don't realize is that this is a 21 round magazine. Tons of capacity. All in a package that, for all intents and purposes, fits into a much smaller location than your standard gun would with 21 round capacity. So that's the why on this thing. I think it's a cool idea. I'm excited to see where it goes. Let's take a look at the how. So where to begin? First off, you have to have a trigger guard, and this skeletal frame folds out, tucks in nicely there, which keeps the trigger guard going. Of course, the trigger has to change, right? Because the trigger has to be able to collapse down in there. See how it's getting pulled in by this bar here? And that exposes everything right to the bottom of the slide. Now what I want to show you on the slide here is if you look at the safety plunger in there, it's not being depressed, and in fact when this is collapsed, it's pulling the bar forward, making it even safer, taking it further away from being ready to fire. I'll take the slide off and show you why that's so. So that's the shape of the trigger bar. It's tallest at the forward part. So as we fold and this gets pulled forward, we're staying nice and clear of that safety. So all three of the original, well, two of the original Glock safeties remain in effect. The trigger design itself is pretty neat because it breaks at the 90 degree, and it's a flat trigger, which is all the rage for a couple of reasons. One, some people like the feel. The other one is it's a lot harder to screw up the pull on a flat trigger because your pulling force is being distributed across that face there. But watch the break. Comes to about vertical and stops. No over travel. Reset is standard Glock. And that's because, well, everything else is Glock parts, which means you've got all kinds of aftermarket available, things like that. All they've done, the only modifications on here is to permit this folding mechanism, which is really cool. In fact, you can even send in your slide or your frame and use one of your existing slides. For example, here it is with an M3D slide on it. That really looks like a space gun now, doesn't it? Anyways, my point is, it works with any Glock slides from the same generation because, of course, it is a Glock mechanically. So, taking a look at how this whole deployment thing works. So, you've got a magazine that catches there, right? And if you want, you push the magazine release to be able to stick it farther in, and everything gets held down tight. As you're coming up, the magazine hits the trigger bar, which keeps it steady. It locks into place, and then this clamp here locks on the back, and now you're ready to go. It's really brilliant, I think. One other aspect to the construction of this that you may not have seen photos of yet or fully appreciated is these edges here are nice and smooth. These are all hand finished to make sure you don't have too much sharp edge or hanging chads, if you will, hanging off of it. You know, keeping in mind that they don't do the injection molding. This is a factory Glock frame that they then cut and modify, and it's all very cleanly done. Looks very nice. Now this would normally be done at this angle, but so you can see it, I'm going to show it to you from the side. Is pulling out of the pocket, holding onto the frame here, and the trigger guard does prevent you from having a grip on there. With the other hand, you're sweeping up, grabbing the slide, it snaps into place and shoves the gun into your hand, and now you're ready to go. So that way it works, as does the cool nifty flip. If you've got a hold of the magazine, you can flip like that. Because all the safeties remain in place, you can still have a round in the chamber if you want, or if you're going to be storing it without a round in the chamber, as you're deploying and bringing up, you can just rack and you're ready to go. Pretty ingenious. That's the full Conceal. Let's get out to the range and see how it shoots.